Hey everybody, it's Phoebe from Quilted Pig. Thank you for being here today. I'm so glad to see you. Happy New Year! Have you ever made a project that encompasses a year of your sewing life or some other special time, like maybe when your grandkids stayed with you for a couple of summers, things like that? Well, I've done that and I love doing it. I have this one that I made back in 2014. This is every project that I worked on in 2014 is represented here. And I realized as I was getting this together that that's been actually 10 years ago. Now, I've been kicking around a different idea for about a year and a half now, and since it's 10 years ago, let's go ahead and do it. Let me show you how. So, like I said, I've been kicking it around for a couple of years that I'd sure like to do another project like this where I have a memory of everything, not just pictures on my phone or saved in a file on the computer, but something that is tangible that I can touch. I'm a quilter. I like to sew. I like to touch fabric. So let me show you what I've got. I've got an idea for a book that will be a memory book, and I'm taking kind of my inspiration from the junk journal people, and I decided in advance that I wanted to use a heavier substrate than just quilting cotton. So I bought this canvas drop cloth, and I'll put links to everything that I have here in the description box so you can get what you need if you decide you want to do this project as well. But I got this canvas drop cloth. I do plan on cutting it up. I'm going to use that for my substrate. And then I watched a whole bunch of videos on making fabric books and that kind of thing. And I think really the slow stitch embroidery people have been a good inspiration for that. But let me show you what else I've got in addition to this. So I have the canvas drop cloth to be my substrate. And I did treat myself to a new sketch notebook for this year, which is fun. So I have decided that I want my project to be a book, and I would like it to be a big enough book that this could get tucked in like in the back cover. So I'd have my sketches for the year and then also have, you know, the physical tangible memories of it. So I'm excited about that. So something that I did, like I said, I told you I was kind of inspired by the junk journal people, and I went onto a journaling group that I'm a member of and asked about what would be the best ink and things like that that I could use to stamp on fabric. And so this is the one that was referred to me. Now I have a second drop cloth. I had to wash it because we ended up using it as an actual drop cloth, and this came through very well. I also found this super cute stamp set that is all of the alphabet, which I think will be fun to put like years or months, that kind of thing on the different pages. And it takes, you know, a little practice to get the letters lined up if you're wanting like a straight lined up letter. But at the same time, I think that these are so cute that there'll be, you know, just so you can see they're even there. They're not quite even. And I think that with them being like that, I think it'll look more like a, you know, a handset type, because that's what they are. Then I found my friend Linda Israel, who is a beautiful paper crafting artist. She sells these stamps in her store, and this one is really neat. This set it's called Texture Strips, and they're made, the artist who makes the stamps, if she has a miscut or something like that, she goes ahead and cuts them into strips, and so then you can put them on a backing like this. And then once you do that, you glue them on there, and then you can stamp them on things and make texture with them, which I thought was really cool. And I did try this one specifically on the drop cloth that we've washed already, and it stayed in really well. And then she also has a set that are stitching lines. So you can see right there that looks like a little straight stitch, and we've got a buttonhole and a zigzag and some other things. So I'm looking forward to using those just as kind of a, you know, along the sides and the margins, that kind of thing, a little bit of a filler. And then I got a couple of different kinds of fabric markers. Now these stayed on very well. I don't know that I would want to use them totally just because they're just black, but I did find these. This is the Tulip Fabric Markers, and I found the Fabric Mate Dye Ink Marker. And I'm looking for these in some additional colors because so far I've only found black and orange. And then I also got a package of these Eddington textile pins. Now, between these and the tulips, they both washed pretty well, and you know, you can get a little more colors by using different brands. So I was really happy with how that turned out. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get you zoomed in real quick, and then I'll show you my idea and my plan for how to make this happen. So, like I said, I did get a lot of inspiration from the junk journaling community as well as the slow stitch embroidery community. And I just wanted to show you all a book that I had actually purchased that I really liked the way it's set up. And so I thought this was a good example as well. Obviously, like I said, since I'm going to use that new sketchbook because I like the little graph paper that's in it, mine will be bigger than this. But I thought this was neat how it's put in there. So obviously I'm not going to do this many pages. I mean, if I do that many projects in 2024, then I'll probably need more than one book. Anyway, so we'll close that one up. So while I was looking at how to do this, I determined that what I need is a spine. So this is a spine that I made by putting some Pellon Fusible Fleece on some fabric. And then I tried stitching various types of pages together. So this one, I just put a stitch just a 1/4 inch in all the way around. And it turned out this fabric was really not a good choice for it. It's kind of a loosey-goosey weave. And so it really just, like I said, it just wasn't a good choice. But it's not precious to me, so I wasn't that worried about it. So I did that. This was me trying out different ways to do the pages. And then I pinked around the edge for this one. And for the next one, I tried sewing basically making it a pocket all the way around, sewing it right sides together and then turning it right side out and then stitching it up with the top stitching. And I just didn't really like how that looked. And my other concern is with the thickness of the canvas, if these seam allowances would be a problem. So that's, like I said, this is kind of a loosey-goosey lightweight fabric, so it wasn't a big deal for this, but it might be for that canvas. Then next, I tried just making a tube. And so I sewed that seam allowance along the bottom and along the top, and I left the ends open. And I thought, you know, that might be kind of neat because then you could put like a pocket of things in here. And I'm kind of thinking that on some of the pages, I want to stitch down some vinyl so that I can have a photograph of a finished project, but I haven't, you know, committed to that yet, so we'll see. But I thought this was kind of neat to have that open, loose pocket that would allow you to, you know, put something in there. You know, a tuck spot, a journal entry, that kind of thing. Now, as you can see, if I spread these apart, I hope you can see, there's a gap. So I was trying to sew these at 1/8 of an inch apart, which for the heavy embroidery books and things like that a lot of those artists make, this is too small. But for what I'm doing, I think it's appropriate as about 1/8 of an inch. As you can see, I did not sew this straight, so we'll be working on that today. And then lastly, I tried one because I was trying to decide if binding the pages was a viable option. I didn't like it, but that tells you what it looks like. It's, and I'm sorry, it's blue on blue, so it's a little difficult to see, but it was difficult to do, and I didn't like how the edges, the corners looked unfinished, so I'm going to set that aside. So let's move on to my actual plan, and then I'm going to stitch a little bit of this for you today, and hopefully we can get an idea of what I'm planning to do. So my plan is to make pages where each project would be its own page or spread if you're used to the scrapbooking world or the journaling world. So the idea would be that maybe I would sketch out some of the pattern with some of those fabric markers, or do a little stamping and then maybe stitch down some of the fabrics, or if I had a partial block left over, that kind of thing. And so to do that on each of these pages. Now, after doing that little blue sample, I decided that probably my favorite is going to be the pinked edges, When I made that other quilt that I showed at the beginning, I had pinked some of the scraps, but I didn't pink all of them because honestly I got bored. But what I had done was save all of my scraps for the whole year and then cut them into 2 or 3 inch pieces, and then I stitched them down. And they raveled a little bit, but not a lot. And with this being a book that's not going to be washed, where that quilt has been washed multiple times, I don't think that that will be a problem. So I think what I'm going to plan on doing is pinking the edges at the end. Now, obviously this is muslin, not the canvas, because I was just trying to make a sample. So what I did, just to kind of give myself an idea of a plan, to help myself make a plan, I measured this book because I kind of like the size of it. And I thought, you know, if you were doing photographs like that you have printed at the drugstore or whatever, this would be about the right size. This is actually 6 3/4 by, I believe, 5 1/2. So with the spine and all of that, it measures out, and I think it would be good for photographs. So that's why I chose to go with this size. And also my ruler is 6 1/2 inches wide, and therefore my pages are 6 1/2 inches wide. I also, based on the 5 1/2 from that other book, decided to go with 11 for the width. Now I started thinking about this, and I thought about the way I had pre-stitched the fabrics on the blue sample together, and I thought, well, you'd have to commit ahead of time to how many pages you're going to make. And I don't know how many projects I'm going to do this year. I might do 3. I might do a dozen. I don't know yet. So I haven't committed to that. And I wanted to be able to use each page as its own signature within and not have them sewn together beforehand. So what I did was I cut out, I believe I have 9 of these. And because I was cutting along the selvage edge of the fabric, for some of them I kept, this is actually the selvage edge, and this is a cut edge. This is a cut edge on top and bottom as well. And so when I positioned these in here, I put them in order so that the selvage edges would come together. That way I'm thinking that once this is done, and that drop cloth has selvage on 2 edges, if it's like the other one that I already washed, it has selvage edges on 2 edges and then a hem on the other 2. And so I'm thinking that like I was saying before, that might be a neat way to make like a little pocket or a tuck spot in between the pages once I'm done with that. So next I needed a spine. And you saw how wonky it turned out on that blue one. So what I did is I took a piece of my leftover and I fused some fleece onto it. Now, if I were planning to do big thick pages, I might do them wider than this, and I don't plan on stitching them into the spine until I'm ready to actually assemble the book. So I think I'm safe with doing this now just as kind of my tester idea. But what I've done is I made a series of lines that are 1/8 of an inch apart, and then I put this crosswise line at top and bottom in order to line up my pages. So the plan is to take my page, lay it down, line it up with a line, and then having that cross line would help me to get top and bottom. And then I'll open it out, pin that down, and stitch right down that crease that I've made. I did it with an iron, which I'll do the same thing on the drop cloth. So I'll do that for each page. That's the plan. So then I have several pages attached to a spine at that point. And then from there, so this is one 15-inch scrap that was left over from cutting a series of these pages. And from there, I'll have that spine with those pages. And my plan was to put it in the middle, and then a separate piece would go here and here to, you know, cover up that raw edge. But then this spine, because it's the fusible fleece, will give it a little bit of stiffness. However, when I was getting ready to do this video, I was setting all of my things aside, and I actually had set this kind of like this, where, okay, maybe not quite that far over, but where this came up off center instead of doing where it comes this way, which I could put a button closure or something else fun on that. So I think that that's what I'm gonna do. So that's my working plan for now, and hopefully you'll see me throughout this year as I complete some projects making the individual pages. But I'm going to go ahead and assemble this a little bit just so that we can have kind of an idea on if this is going to work or not. So I originally planned on filming this with a different machine, and then I realized sewing white fabric with, or ecru fabric with ecru thread on a white machine probably wasn't the best idea. So we're going to start with this one, and I've got, like I said, I'm lining up, I apologize, the table just moved. I'm lining up the top and bottom line on that spine with my first hash line there. I'll pull that over, and I'm going to go ahead and pin it in place. Like I showed you with that blue one that I obviously did not pin enough. The pinning is necessary if you want it to be straight. Now if you were stitching this by hand, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because you can make adjustments as you go, but we're not. So I've got that first one. I've got my crease lined up with the one line and the other line, and then the cross bars as well. So we'll put that over here, and I am going to back tack on these. I think that with physically turning the pages and that kind of thing, I think that that is a better choice, a better option. So I'm just going to sew straight down that crease. The machine's not super duper happy about how thick this is. It'll be okay. It will be okay. So I'm going to cut that off. And I'll do a better job of trimming these than I did on the blue sample, because I do have a plan for this book once I get done with it, so it won't just be a sample that goes to waste. So I'm going to pull those pins out so you can see now that I have one page stitched in, and that's stitched to my spine. So that spine will give it a little bit of stiffness, and since it's a fusible web, or I guess it's not really fusible web, the fusible pellon, it will help with that as well. So we'll start with the next one, and this is the first one that has a selvage edge on it. So there's the selvage edge, and what I did was I tried to match these up when I laid them out so that the selvage edge, the two selvage edges would come together. So like I said, if I wanted to do a pocket, like I was saying, then it would be easy to have that. I wouldn't need to finish off that edge. So I'm lining it up with the next line. I'm going to open that out. Move that out of the way so I can get to it. And I realize now that there is too much bulk on this side to pin and get an accurate pinning. I'm going to pin on this side. I think I could probably go through, I guess, that first page. Just give it a little additional stability. Okay. So again, we've got that crease lined up right there with that. And I'll go through and stitch it. And again, I'll back tack just a little bit. So I don't know how this is going to look in the end, but I've seen plenty of beautiful embroidered, hand embroidered books made like this that are my inspiration, and so I'm hopeful that it will look pretty like they do. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch the rest of these, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm at the last page, and interestingly, one of the people I watched making one of these by hand mentioned that she sews the pages on. She starts with the left and goes this way, and I assumed at the time that that wouldn't matter to me because I am left-handed, and I assumed she was probably right-handed. I don't know if she is or not. However, I have noticed that I almost messed that one up. I have noticed that this is getting very bulky, like right over here. Luckily, my machine is really just going through these couple of layers here at the end, but it is something to keep an eye on, depending on how finicky your machine is for you. And I stabbed myself on that last one, so I'm going to pin the other direction this time. Ouch. And still managed to stab myself. Alrighty. Let's get that pinned in. Okay, and like I said, this is the last one. So back tacking a little bit too far. Okay. So, because like I said, I don't know yet how big my final book will be. It all depends on how many projects I end up doing this year, which is kind of how that other quilt went. I haven't made a commitment to how I'm going to finish this out yet. However, this kind of gives me an idea of what will work, and I think this is going to work pretty good. So I've got that spine going on there, and my plan is, after I trim off all these threads, obviously, is to put a cover on there. And then that would be a fabric book that could be stitched in for someone who was doing hand embroidery or things like that, who wanted to do maybe a sampler book. For myself, my plan, like I said earlier, is to basically create a page for each project. And then when I'm done, I'll begin assembling them like this. And I'm planning to stitch along this and this. And since this particular set is 2 pages that have the selvage edge, I can leave that as a pocket. And then when I do the cover, I'm going to make my one that's on the canvas big enough that the cover can be large enough to have a pocket on it to put that little notebook in. So I hope you like this. I hope you'll come back and see how this progresses as it goes through the year. Like I said, I believe I said I cut 9 pages. So that leaves a lot of space, but I don't know how many that I'll actually finish with different projects throughout the year. So thank you again for joining me. This is Phoebe at Quilted Pig. If you like this content and you want to see more, be sure and subscribe, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.